So let's go ahead and get started. And we're on the lesson, moving my character. And the goals, the learning objectives here are three things again. First, we're attempting to learn about conditional statements. That's the first objective. That's a super, super important concept in computer science. Second, we're going to practice using keyboard events specifically related to our conditionals. And then we're going to learn how to change. Oh, there's a typo there. How change. Cool. We're going to learn how to change the X and Y position of an item on the screen. Okay, so we're going to learn how to change the X and Y position of an item on the screen. And this will give the illusion of movement inside of a computer game. Now, this is inherently a visual thing, but of course, there are a million different ways that you can make stuff like this accessible. And as we go through the week, we will talk about some of these and we'll build in some things and go through that. Okay, so as a first step, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go to, we're going to go to a separate conditionals tutorial, and I'm going to pull that up and I'm going to put it in the chat again. And we're going to do this again because we're going to focus just on the concept for a second of a conditional in computer science. We're going to do that first because then we're going to use it for our movement system, but I want to put that as a separate thing where it's outside of the program we're writing, just so you can kind of get the hang of it. So I've put in a thing in the chat that says quorumlanguage.com/tutorials/language/if.html. And I'm also going to put it in Slack under Epic Learner. And there we go. Now, if we pull up this tutorial, you'll notice, oh, you won't notice because I don't have my screen shared. And if you're a screen reader user, that won't necessarily help you anyway. But notice that this tutorial has some syntax that has the word if. And then inside of that if, right next to it is a condition. And then it has an end. And so what this does is this tells the computer what's going on in my program, what's the state of my program, and I want you to take different operations depending upon what's going on. Okay, so for example, if I type the word if inside of a box on this web page, and then I type 1 equals 2, and then I put end at the end of it. So the line of code I have is if 1 equals 2, end. That line of code, those 2 lines of code, do something weird. Does anyone know what it does? And this, I will give you a hint. It is a trick question. If you run this program, what will it do? So I'm going to run it. Oh, go ahead. Nothing. That is exactly the right answer. This program will do nothing. And the reason it does nothing is because the computer will make a decision and then it will do nothing with that. So what I'm going to do instead is inside of my if statement, I'm going to use the space bar key, and then I'm going to say if 1 equals 2, then I'm going to have a line of code below it. I'm going to type a couple spaces. And I'm going to type output space, and then I'm going to put double quote winning, double quote, or some phrase, whatever you want. So on my screen, I've got the first line in one of these quorum boxes. I've got if space 1 equals 2. And then below it and before the end, it says output winning, and then end. Okay. Now this code is correct in the sense that it is a syntactically correct program. But what does this program do? Again, a trick question. It also does nothing. Why?
Because it's not true.
Because it's not true. If statements only do the stuff inside of their area if the statement is true. And unlike politicians, they never lie. So if the statement is true, it actually does what it says. If the statement is false, it actually doesn't. Okay. So what I want you to do then is I want you to run this program, verify it does nothing. And then I want you to change it to if 1 equals 1, output winning, and then I want you to run that program. And ta-da. If 1 equals 1, winning. Okay, so the core concept involves the idea that you're testing something. It's an equal sign. You can actually use greater than or less than, stuff like that too. But the idea is there's a test, and that test is this 1 equals 1. It can be related to variables or other stuff too, but it's a test. And then you indicate somehow that it passed. In our case, we're just putting an output statement, but later we're going to cause characters to move when this happens. And then we're going to call end, which indicates that this is a block, a region. They call this a scope. Anything inside between if and end is what happens. Anything outside of it isn't. And one way that we can verify that is we can add another code that says the end. And then if we make our if statement false again, oops. So if I have if 1 equals 2, output winning end, and then output the end, this program will only say the end, but it will say the end. If I run it, that's what it does. Okay, now, there's a couple funny things about these conditionals that I think are good to know. Number one is, oftentimes, if you're listening to the news media, especially from like news people that don't understand anything about technology, there's like this natural tendency today to call everything AI. And I swear to you, oftentimes when they say AI, they mean this, like an if statement, and it's like one line of code. It's like, we have a new smart thermostat that can detect whether something's going on. And it's like, yeah, all it does is just check to see if the temperature is above 75. And now it's somehow AI or smart. I mean, it's just stupid. So like, a little silly, so don't get suckered in by that stuff. It can be a little bit ridiculous. But a lot of all computer science is just teaching the computer to make these kinds of decisions. This skill, using conditionals, is one that if you're teaching a class on computer science, it's something you might want to spend like a week or two on to make sure that you go through all the ways that you can do it. We're not going to do all that today. But going through this particular one is important because it is so commonly used throughout your entire computer science career. You use if statements constantly when you're writing code. It's just a standard, normal thing. Mike Face says very similar to an SQL conditional statement, and that is true. Or in any other programming language, it always works very similarly. Okay. Now, the next thing that you have to know with if statements, and we will do this, you can chain them. And what that means is, instead of just saying if 1 equals 2, you can add another line of code that says else if 3 equals 4. And of course, my statements are false. So what I've done, I've made 2 if statements. And what we're going to do is we're going to watch the behavior of them as they go. And I'm going to read this lines. If 1 equals 2, and then underneath it, it says output winning. And then I've got a line of code that says ELSEIF, ELSEIF, all one word, space 3 equals 4, and then output this branch, and then end. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens as we make these true or false. And I'm actually going to get rid of my 1 equals 2, and I'm just going to say, oh yeah, you know what, I should change this, make it a little bit easier. I can also just say true or false. Oh, sorry. So sorry, I screwed that up. I had meant to do that slightly differently. So I now have if space true, that's the first line. The second line is output winning. The third line is else if, ELSEIF space true, again, output this branch, and then end. Now, what in computer science, whenever you have if statements, it always works the same way, regardless of what programming language you're in, for the most part, when you have these little branches like this. But it's slightly misleading what happens here. And so very briefly, what I'd like is someone to try to describe what they think this will do. And if you want to cheat and run it and find out, that's okay too. What do they think this will do? And like usual, I will call on somebody if I have to be evil teacher. All right, Mike.
Yeah, I would imagine that it does them in order of how they're written in the statement. So since these are both true conditions, the first true one that hits, that'll be the output. I don't know if it'll go on to the other one. I would say probably not. But
yeah, that's the tricky part. So let's everybody run this and see what the answer is. We know that it'll do the first one because it's true, so it has to.
yeah.
The question is, does it do the second one or does it skip past it? And so when I run this, it says winning and then it says the end. So the point is, once one of them is true, it skips all the others. Okay? Now let's do this again. Instead of an if true at the beginning, we're going to say if false. And we're going to run it again. So before we run it, I again want you to think like a computer and imagine what this is going to do. So I'm going to say verbally what this computer program will do as it goes. It says if false. Okay, this part of the if statement is not true, therefore skip it. Then it goes down, so it's not going to say this output winning.
But
Then it says else if true. This part of it is correct. So it says, all right, I'm going to do this part. It's going to say output this branch, and then it's done. So it'll say this branch, and then the end if I run this program. This branch, the end. And there we go. Any questions about this idea of conditionals? We're going to use this for moving our characters in just a moment, but that's the idea. Any questions? Everybody get it? Raise hand if you think you're following.
I just have kind of a general question.
Yeah.
So the word false and the word true, it has to be defined in the actual programming language.
Yep. It's
Okay.
defined in the programming language. That's correct. And not all programming languages. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so you don't have to define it. It's already been defined in Quorum.
That's correct. That's correct. Yep. Those are called keywords. So, yeah. And in the if you're a visual person, there actually is no auditory equivalent in screen readers. And in fact, I don't know if any, I don't even know how to do this, like maybe prosodic inflection or something. I don't even think a screen reader can do that easily. Anyway, doesn't matter. But if you're a visual user, any word like that is automatically defined is shown up as blue. Yeah. Blue. Okay, so now let's go back to our Quorum Studio, and we're going to find using Control-Alt.
can I add a quick note here on screen readers?
Do it.
There is a scheme command that will actually tell you the color.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
yeah.
So it'll tell you the color, but it doesn't like, okay, yeah.
It would tell you bold, it would tell you the font, every attribute. There, yeah, you just have to know how to change the schemes with your screen readers, and it will tell you the color.
Oh, interesting. I've never used that. What's the key? Like, what do you press?
Well, this is JAWS. I actually don't know which one it is in NVDA, but you can do Insert Alt S, and it will take you to a whole huge scheme list. So if you have JAWS, and I actually want to do some recordings on this. NVDA and JAWS. Yeah, because I'm the one that actually teaches all the screen readers to all the programs. So I'm really curious to see how this will work. But it's just an attribute. But if you have JAWS open, I've got to believe there's an NVDA, something similar with NVDA.
There probably is if they made it into JAWS. I don't know, but like.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up though. But yeah, so Insert Alt S will take care of it in JAWS.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, so now we're going to go to our action press key. We're going to use the smart navigation, Control Alt up and down to get there. And we're going to, instead of having that output event key code, we're going to highlight over output either with the keyboard or the mouse. We're going to delete it, and we're going to write the word if. And does anyone remember the key number for the space key?
62.
It was 62. And so we're going to say if event equals key, the event : key code equals 62, and then end. So these lines of code now are going to be if action press key, keyboard event. The second line below it is if event : key code equals 62, which we know is space, and then end. And inside of that, we're going to put an output statement that just says space, so that we know that the space key was pressed. Okay, so saying those lines again. Action press key. If event : key code equals 62. Output space with double quotes around it. And then end, and then another end for the end of press key. So this is a little bit tricky both for everybody. So be aware these multiple ends in a row and matching these braces is a very common error for novices. And I'm not guessing. There's some good data and evidence out of several research labs, especially Neil Brown's lab in the UK. Our lab has some good data on this too. This is a common mistake, and if students are making a mistake, this is statistically likely to be one of the most common. Understanding these scope relationships turns out to be hard for students. It's a common thing in computer science. It's something you need to know. Otherwise, we would just get rid of it in computer science. But it is a common thing to screw up. So be aware. Okay, so now I'm going to run my program, and I just want to see that it'll go with space. So I'm going to press Control R. Oops, did I not? Oh, because I'm already running them. I forgot to turn off my game. I'm going to press Control R, and I'm going to press space, and it fires. And then if I press any other key, it does not. And this is the power of if statements. Now I can write a game or something, any other application that has you respond to the keys I want it to and not the opposite. Okay, why don't we stop and have questions? Any questions about this?
Mine did not work.
Damn you! No.
Exactly like yours.
Is it? Oh, that's best. Did it?
Oh, no, and the spacing's off. How that spacing? Is it really? Is that what you just went over? I was so caught up in my issue that I kind of missed all the issues that you had with the novices. Oh, you have 3 ends.
Yeah, I know, right? This is literally exactly what I was just talking about. It's such a common mistake, statistically likely. There's even good evidence on like how often it happens and stuff
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh. That was it.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
See, I know it. That's why I'm saying, like, when people make this mistake, just recognize it's super common. It's normal. Everybody makes it. It's a normal thing to do, myself included. It is normal, and you get used to it. If everyone can wait just 1 second, I've been asked to assign Tim Cluthy to a room. Okay, and the other person. Okay, so now the next part that we want to do is we want to add in our if statement. We have that if, and then we have the else if. I want you to spend 5 minutes, if you can, and I want you to figure out, using the Control J key that we showed earlier, or just by outputting the values to the screen. Don't forget that you can just say output event : key code, and then it'll tell you any key that's there. I want you to figure out what is the key code for the up arrow, the down arrow, the left arrow, and the right arrow, and I want you to include else if statements in here for all of your arrow keys. And we're going to use this then for movement. So you have 5 minutes to do that, and if you can't figure it out, and that's okay, then I will go through it and we'll do it. But try to take 5 minutes to figure it out using exactly the same code that we did before, the else if.
Your parents are here, but they know you're working.
Okay.
Oh. Okay. Another 3 minutes to try to attempt it, and then I will pull it out myself. If you can't get them all, try to get one of them. Okay. Okay, why don't we go for it then? So the first thing I'm going to do when I do this is I'm going to open up a game, and I've rigged it with an output event : key code to tell me what the numbers are. And I'm going to write down the numbers: up, down, left, right. So up is 19, down is 20, left is 21, and right is 22. So then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change one of these to 19. Now, granted, there are better ways to code this that like guarantee that it's a constant and stuff like that. But right now we're just going to use the raw numbers because we're trying to learn. And I'm going to say event : key code. Instead of saying space, I'm going to have it say up arrow. And then I'm going to run it, and I'm just going to make sure that it really does do that. And if I press up arrow, it said up arrow and then 19. So it did, in fact, go up when it was doing that. Mike, I'm not sure if you're trying to talk, but you're muted.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm on a phone call.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, so now then in order to get the down arrow, which was 20, we're going to add a new line of code right below where it says output up arrow. We're going to say else if, all one word, lowercase, event colon key code equals 20. And just like before, we're going to use output, instead of output up arrow, we're going to say output down arrow. Oops. And I'm just using copy paste to do that, and that's fine. So now my code says action press key keyboard event event. If event colon key code is equals to 19, output up arrow. Else if event colon key code equals 20, output down arrow with double quotes around it. And output event colon key code, which tells me which key was pressed, and then end, and then at the very bottom of the file is end. And if I run this, if I press up arrow, it gave me the up arrow. If I press down arrow, it did say down arrow. And then left and right didn't do anything because I haven't coded that. So let's add those too. So I'm going to copy paste again. And I'm going to put in new else if statements. And I can just chain these one after the other. I think 21 was left and 22 was right, but I forget. I'll try it, left and right. So now what do I have? I have if event colon key codes equals 19, and then the others are 20, 21, and 22. And then inside of each of them is output and then up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, or right arrow. And you can imagine how you could use this for movement. Because if you have movement, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have an if statement. So if I run it again, I've got up arrow, 19, down arrow, 20, right arrow is 22, and left arrow is 21, and all of that works. So before I move on, I'd like to make sure that everybody's there. Do you need another minute, or do you think that you're, or do I get raised hands? Denise raised hand. Sounds like we might need another minute.
Oh no, that meant I was good.
No, for you, I know, but I meant nobody else did.
Oh, other people, sorry.
Yeah. Earl is done. What about Josh? Travis is done. Two more people raised hands. That's great. Okay, and Josh raised hand. Okay, good. All right, so we now have an if statement that can respond to the keys that we wanted to. And so what that means is now we're gonna actually move our character. Okay, so in order to do this, we have to do sort of a magic trick. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back up to our create game. And again, we're gonna use Control-Alt to navigate between all the actions. This is the easiest way. And we have this line of code here that says item 2D value equals find item 2D by name, and then it passes in Jill or whatever you named your character. And this is a line that we're gonna change. Instead of having item 2D value down here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna change the name, and we're gonna get rid of this line. Oops. We're gonna get rid of this whole spot here, and we're gonna move it up. And there's a really good reason why we're gonna do this. We're gonna move it up to the top of the file, right below class main is game. And this is a little confusing. We're gonna change the name from value, it doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna call it PC for player character. And we're gonna set it, and this is weird, to undefined. right there. So right below class main is game, we're going to have a line of code that says item2d space PC space equals undefined. Say that again. Item2d PC equals undefined. Down below where we said find item2d by name, we're now going to say PC equals, and then the item that we had, and we're going to delete our old output value :get x. And when we run this program, it's not going to do anything different. But there is one really important difference with this code, and that is if this item value or whatever we call it is located inside of create game, when create game is done, it gets rid of that item. If instead we store it up top, right below class main is game, it allows any action in our system to use that object. This is again scoping, which is a chronically difficult thing for students to understand, but it's also really important in computer science. Like you use this constantly in the field of computer science. It's a very common thing. So I want to say it one more time. Item2d PC equals undefined is what you type. And what that means is my whole game, I'm storing it for anybody to use because of the location I put it in the file. That's scope. And in addition, when I say find item2d by name, I have to set it equal to it there. And you'll notice, at least for visual users, this also turns green, and it sounds like you can get that information as well from the screen reader. So it's PC equals find item2d by name, and item2d PC equals undefined. Okay, everybody with me? Raise hands if you got it.
Hey, Stefik,
Yep.
can you give me admin on Zoom so I can help move people around? Like Sarah needs to be sent to advanced.
Sure. How do I do that?
I think you just hover over my name and there might be a promote button. I thought it was something.
Let's find out.
Either way, just right now, Sarah needs to be moved to advanced.
I can make you the host, but I can't.
Okay, never mind then.
Okay, I'll just move Sarah to advanced. Sorry. We might be able to figure it out later. Oh, wait. I got to stop. Here, I'll give me just 1 second, folks. Sorry. Breakout room. Sarah Larkin is, what is that? Oh, 1. Okay, got it. Okay. So Sarah should be, oh, she did. Okay, great. I'm gonna share screen again. Okay,
And
now, sure.
Could you just tell me what the PC was? My internet dropped out and so I dropped out of Zoom for about 2 minutes.
Oh, okay, no problem. I'll say this one more time for where we're at. So at the very top of the file, I mean, not very top of the file, right below class main is game, I have a line of code. It says item2d PC equals undefined. This line of code is exactly like it was inside of create game, except we moved it up and we moved it outside of the scope of all of these actions that are there. And when we do that, that means make it available everywhere to anything in my game. And the reason we care about, and then inside of create game, we say PC equals find item2d by name, and that is the same idea, but it makes it available everywhere. And the reason we care about that is because inside of press key, we're now going to change the properties of our thing so that we can move up and down and left and right on the screen. Now keep in mind, when we do this, when we code this stuff, if you are a sighted user, you might code the movement first, possibly. If you're a screen reader user, you might code some kind of screen reader command first to tell you information about what it is doing when you're moving this stuff. In other words, depending on how you use the computer might dictate which things you do first for accessibility or otherwise. But nonetheless, the point is that at this point, you can use conditionals to change things as the game runs, and that can give you information visually or otherwise. NVDA plus control plus D. Oh, interesting. Okay. So now let's give this a shot. So inside of my keyboard event, I have the up arrow. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a line of code around event key code equals 19. So I'm on line 48. Right below where it says if event key code equals 19, I'm going to say PC and then colon. And it pops up the code completion. And inside of that code completion is all sorts of items. And I'm going to type capital S. And I'm just going to look at all the options that I have for properties that I can change. The first one is scale. That might make the item bigger. That might be scale from center, set angular velocity, set center, etc. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say set Y, and then I'm going to say 400 inside of that. And I'm coding the movement part first, and you'll see why. But if I run my program then, and I then press the up arrow, on screen the character does move. It doesn't move in any sensible way, but it does move. And then if I press it again, it doesn't do anything else because I just set it to a fixed constant as to where its location is. What I really want, however, is to get my current position and then move it up from that. So to do that, I'm going to say PC colon, and then I'm going to say get X. And because this will generate a hint, I can press Alt Enter. And it returns value. And I can then say inside of my set X, value plus, let's say, 50. So I'm going to write these lines of code. If event key code is equals 19, number value equals inside of this if, number value equals PC get X, left and right paren. PC colons, oops, I'm sorry, that's not supposed to be X, that's supposed to be Y. That's a bug. So number value equals PC get Y. And then PC set Y, left paren, value plus 50, and I chose 50 arbitrarily. Now for a screen reader user, you might want to issue other commands. There's some speech commands that you can use, and there's all sorts of stuff that you can do to try to give yourself information. One of the easiest ones is to turn off the other output statements and then put the new value into the console, because that's very easily accessible through a screen reader, so you can test your stuff that way. And I'll do that before we're all done. But for now, I'm going to run my program again. And if I visually on the screen, what it shows is if I press the up arrow, every time I press up, it moves the character by 50 pixels. And it is actually doing that on screen. So before I go code the rest of them, I want to modify my code so that it only gives that information so a screen reader user can get it. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is change my up arrow command. Instead of saying up arrow, it's going to say value plus 50. And then I'm going to kill the other key codes and stuff like that so that I can get to it easily with the screen reader. And then I'm going to pop it up with the screen reader so that you can kind of hear how that goes. So I'm going to turn my screen reader back on.
NVDA, Quorum Studio, action pressed key, keyboard event.
And so if I'm going to go down this line of code to where I'm at so far.
If event key code equals 19.
You'll notice that screen readers, and this is normal, I think any screen reader user knows this, but it skips keys and stuff like that, characters and stuff.
Number value equals PC get Y. PC set Y, 4 alu plus 5,000.
That was weird.
PC set Y, 4 alu plus 5,000.
Weird. I don't know why it said that.
V output value plus 50.
Huh.
PC V output value plus 50.
Huh.
Else if event key code equals 20.
I don't know why.
V output value plus 50.
Huh. Okay. Well, yes. The idea is that it's reading off these lines of code. Screen readers are always a little bit finicky with code, but nonetheless, you get the idea. And what's going to happen then is, as I press up, one by game runs, it's going to put that information into the console so I can tell, at least mathematically, where it's going. So I'm going to go running it.
Build successful in 0. Game window.
I press up once. And I wouldn't know from a screen reader perspective yet whether it did it.
Quorum Studio 2.0.1.
I press Control 3 to get to the console.
Output tab running. Build successful in 0. 50.0.
So I got 50.0. Now I'm going to go back to my program.
Game row 1 game window.
Press up arrow again. I wouldn't know if it did anything yet.
Quorum Studio running. Build 50.0. 100.0.
And you can tell that it's then going up by 50. Now, of course, this isn't a good user interface for telling this. This is just one mechanism by which you can use to get this information.
Exit NVDA.
And even if you're playing a game, if you're designing an accessible game, you probably don't want it to output the coordinate every time you press Y anyway, because that's kind of a crappy game. That's kind of a crappy user interface. So sometimes when you're designing games, especially when there's accessibility things in mind, you might want different kinds of sounds to play and stuff like that. And we will go over how to do a lot of that kind of stuff as we go through these designs. But nonetheless, are there any questions about doing this one key before we let everybody kind of go forward and try to do the other three? Any questions?
Andy, I just missed where you had the PC up above in your code, where you defined it or undefined it or something.
Yep. It's on line 16, right after class main is game. And the reason we put it up there is because of scope. Logical scope. Basically, scope is where does this live in my computer program and who has access to it. In this case, this is saying any action has access to it physically because of its location in the file, which is weird, but it's really common in computer science. So instead of having it defined in create game, I assign it in create game, PC equals find item 2D by name Jill, but I don't actually, but I define it up above. And that's the key weird thing about this particular program. Other questions? Did that make any sense?
Can you quickly go back to the action press key where you just were when we did the number value? Because because you've got if event key code equals 19. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sense of.
Yeah, so let me put it in English from what these are doing. If event key code is equal to 19, that's saying the up arrow. And 19,
Right.
We wrote in the number because I didn't want to force you to grab the constants from somewhere else, but there is a way to actually do that. I could show you that too. I find it a little bit easier, but nonetheless, 19 happens to be up arrow. And then inside of that little block, it's saying if you get an up arrow, get the current value of Y from the character, and then set the value to that value plus some other amount.
So just, this is Leslie, just to clarify.
Yep.
So Y, we're talking Y axis. So if we wanted to move horizontally, we would say set X.
Bingo. Yep, got it.
Okay, thank you.
And believe it or not, all of Quorum's stuff actually does work in 3D as well, although I'm only showing 2D games right here. So if you wanted to go up, it's Y. If you want to go left and right, it's X. And technically, you can even do stuff in 3D, which would be Z. We won't go over 3D here, but nonetheless, you can do that too. And it's still accessible, right? It's still, the screen reader will pick up on 3D items just as easily. So. Or difficulty, depending on whether you ran into a bug or something. So. Other
I just
questions?
discovered something hilarious. So if you guys just have this. So I kept doing Control R, couldn't figure out why it quote unquote was not running. It actually was, but it was running behind my window. I finally discovered that. And then every time I closed it, it immediately popped up again as many times as I'd done Control R.
Oh, you know what? That's actually a bug in the tracker. We queue those for some reason. I don't even know why, but like we do. And so, yes, it does do that. It's bizarre, but like it does actually. That's legitimate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it's not so much a bug. It's just that's the way it was put together. It's probably not very intuitive though. We'll probably turn it off. So.
well, the point is, if you do a Control R and you think it's not running, just Alt Tab and you're liable to find it in the background.
Yeah.
And then,
In fact, ironically, as you're saying this, I'm literally doing that accidentally right now. I just noticed that. So that's actually really funny.
yeah, it is hilarious.
Control E will end a program. So you can do that too. So I just press Control E. So for end.
Andy, could you just scroll up on your screen
Yep.
again?
Is that good?
Thanks. That's what I need.
Got it. No problem. This is a slightly tricky lesson. That's why we wanted to do it last today. Because you have to think about scope a little bit. There's conditionals, which is new. And then, there's else ifs, which is a part of a conditional. So it is a little trickier. It is a little trickier, to say the least. You're getting items from scenes now. You're moving them around. And for screen reader users too, this is where the graphics stuff becomes just a little bit trickier because you have to kind of until you can get your own accessibility features coded into your game to get information back, which you can do, you kind of have to have coping mechanisms as you go, as you build up your own features that you want. So, I mean, ultimately you want to have sounds and stuff like that in there too. That'll give you whatever information you want, but you have to build those. So you have to do them one thing at a time. So. Okay, other questions? Is everybody able to get this going? Can I get a raised hand for getting it going? Okay, Denise's raised hand.
I kind of cheated and looked at the completed file from the Quorum website.
Do it.
They have a real tricky line in there that I've just loved. It made it so easy. So under the action pressed keyboard event, they added the integer code equals event : key code. And then whenever you were doing the if statements, you could just use the capital up, left, down, right. That was beautiful. Instead of,
I did that.
yeah. But I know it tied in with what we were doing earlier with getting the numbers for the keystrokes. So,
Yeah.
but it's really cool. You could go deep in this.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're showing you how to do some little scaffolded stuff, but you have to remember too, even when people are using Quorum Studio, guess how we built it? It's the same code, right? It just happens to be 500,000 lines or something.
Yeah.
How many, but a lot, but or I forget exactly how many. Maybe maybe it's not quite that big, but it's a lot of code. So, but yeah, it's the same thing. All we do is get those key codes too. It's done exactly the same way. So yeah, and those answers as well. The whole point in me putting those up there for GitHub is so people can steal from it and learn from it and stuff like that. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I figured it. I just missed out on a huge portion of it because that call. I was like, all right, I'm lost. I got to go back.
Dude, yeah, that's the point. That's why it's there. And plus too, I know that there's some people that will be jumping in later. I know Gaston, he came in a little bit later, and so it makes it a lot easier for him to catch up if he can grab the current answer and then go through. Yeah. So,
Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Where are we at in this lesson? Okay, so I'll let you do on your own the rest of the subtraction and stuff like that. And I've got 2 wrap-up questions that I want us to think about for the final part. NVDA is not reading anything in Quorum Studio. Leslie, try rebooting NVDA. We have seen every blue moon We have seen that happen. And then when we do it, rebooting NVDA somehow tells it to resync or something. We haven't quite figured out why that happens, but nonetheless, I have seen that. So give that a shot if it's not if it for some reason decided to vomit on you. I don't know if Leslie's still in the chat. Oh yeah, she is. Okay. Okay, so for the questions, I have 2 questions for the group. One is question 1. Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, well, I originally designed this as breakouts, but that hasn't worked quite as well as we had hoped. So 1 is for users that cannot see the screen, moving an object in this way would make no sound, making our game inaccessible. For gaming, what does it mean to be accessible, and how might we change our game to make it accessible with this movement? So the question is kind of conceptual. I'm not asking you from like a code perspective, like what do I type? I'm asking you like, okay, you have a game and you're doing movement. What would make this accessible? You know, should you embed sounds? Should you not? Should you embed information about movement? Should you not? Should you just have sounds for collisions? Should you not? What would make this game more accessible related to things like movement? What do you think?
Okay, so I think I can answer this question, at least the best of my ability. So I would actually use sounds, and at least for accessibility testing. You know, what we were outputting numbers to the console when moving. I would probably not only output it to the console, but also send it via event to the screen reader as well, so that it would read it automatically, as opposed to all tabbing back to the console and having to read it that way.
That's good. That's good. So you can do that too. There's a way to send.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, so well, I was going to say it depends on the game. If in your game, I would think that it would be good to have some sound to indicate forward movement. It might even be good to differentiate between Y and X movement. But in other games, like there's blindfold games, there's really nothing on the screen, and as long as you're going in the right direction, you just have the happy music playing. And when you come close to a wall on either side, you get an escalation of sound, and they even differentiate that which headphone that is, so you get some directionality, which is really kind of fun.
That's great. That's great. And you can program all that too, by the way. So there's a way, we will talk about it later, on how to do spatial sound like that. You can do it in both 2D or 3D. If you do it in 3D, you can 2D, you can just control headphones and stuff. But there's also a way you can do 3D sound. So you can make 3D landscapes, and then you can tell the system to automatically handle like Doppler effects and whatever it is you want. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff you can do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like it's really fun to play with. We do it all the time. So
what might be, so there are a lot of math programs that we use with the students. And when it goes up, the sound goes up. And when you go down, the sound goes down. When you go left and right, it also makes different sounds. If you were to follow the same type of sounds, like say Desmo's graphing calculator or other graphing sounds, the kids would already be familiar with it. Now, the adults may not be using these, but all these kids, hopefully this is who you're targeting, you know, we're gonna target all these kids who are already familiar with these type of audio math graphing programs, then I think they would fall in line really easily with what Quorum is doing, because they would already be comfortable with the different sounds that are already out there that we use for math programs.
That makes sense. Yeah, so that's the idea. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was just wondering if you can use haptics in any way, going back to the keynote, if you're, I know that this is going to be, this is on a computer, but is there anything about haptics
There is, in fact. In fact, we even have a tutorial on how to do it. Let me see if I can't. I'll post it in the chat just so you have access to it. And that is, if you want to do haptics.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. It's there's an Android vibration tutorial. Now, haptics, we only support the Android tablets for exactly the reason Jenna said, which is that it's not supported everywhere on the iPad. I mean, on the iPad, it's not supported at all. And so we just targeted Android first, which is kind of lame because obviously iOS is used more by the BVI community, but only with the iPhone, not the iPad. So, you know, it is what it is. But nonetheless, I posted the vibration tutorial on the chat, and it does let you do haptics, at least with Android tablets or Android phones. I would like to make an iOS version just for
Awesome.
at some point, but at least it exists. So, and actually Jenna's research that does all the stuff, we map to the evidence she gathers. So when her lab gathers evidence, we change the vibration library to support the latest information we have about what makes haptics understandable. So it follows the evidence as best as we can. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We've done a lot of stuff with it. Okay, so the second question is, when our keyboard event is fired, we are telling our character to change its X or Y coordinate one time. Suppose we wanted the change to be continuous, meaning that when we hold a button down, we move, and when we let go, we stop. Can anyone come up with a strategy for how we could do that?
Type repeat.
That's one way that you could sort of do it, but it won't actually work in this case.
Would there be a way to do an if statement to check to see if the key press is still down?
Yep, and that's what you do. And so you basically, this is where the computer has to store information, and then as the thing is going, pressing up or down, that information needs to be turned on and off. And then weirdly, the last thing that we haven't talked about at all, so I'll just tell you, there's this action in here called update. And that action update tells the computer to do something every frame. So basically, as a key is pressed, store information. As the key is released, turn that information off. And then in the update, tell it to keep moving the item if that information is true. And so we're not going to do that right now. But nonetheless, I'm just trying to like plant seeds for how you can do different kinds of operations inside of computer programming. So Earl gets a cookie. I don't have a cookie, but if I had a cookie, I would give it to you, Earl. Actually, I give it to all of you because I think everybody's kind of doing really well. So I'm super, super, super pleased by that. Make sure it's chocolate chip. You know, I also am a fan. So yes, that seems fair. Okay, any other questions related to this particular session? And then I'll pull back the other group in just a moment. But any other questions before I do that? Okay, all right, well then I'm gonna close the other breakout rooms. And they will be closed in 60 seconds. And so I hope that everybody's starting to feel, are you starting to feel comfortable with like how to do this stuff? Is everybody kind of feeling cool? Like, can I get a raised hand if you're starting to feel comfortable with doing some of this coding stuff and like playing with these scenes and like that kind of stuff? Okay, cool. All right, good. I don't know what Amanda's doing, but I'm gonna assume it's a yes, so.
No, I was making fun of Mike.
Oh, that's fine too. Mike is at WSSB, right? Is that right?
Yes.
That's
I
right.
haven't seen him since March. I was just making fun of him, you know.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
He's trying to do like, yeah, like I'm about half raised there. But yeah, it's good stuff.
Great,
Man.
you can be
Really
my TA next year, Mike. Wonderful.
Good luck with that.
Okay, great. Okay, so everybody should be coming back now. Good. Okay, so
Thank you. Bring me back.
I brought you back. Were you stuck in
I
there?
know. Thank you. I couldn't figure out how to get out of there.
Oh no, I had no idea.
So when you hit that timer, Andy, it gives you 60 seconds and then it will clear everyone out of the room automatically.
Yes, yes.
Because I was like, I'm a prisoner. How do I get out of here?
Oh no. Well, you can always send us a private message on whatever device you want, or you know, whatever works for you, and then we can.
But no, okay. I'll have to figure out how to get out of the Windows for future.
Hey, Art, make sure you save.
I did, but I will go one more time.
He rewrote code today. It was great.
Lovely. Okay, good. So I want to point out first, I appreciate everybody coming today. So this is the first day that we actually tried to code. Oh, Ko, what are you doing, man? Like I could only see the top of Ko's head, and somehow I found that appealing. Anyway, he moved his camera. So I appreciate everybody coming today. I hope that you've kind of all gotten a little bit of a taste of how to do some coding and also how to get stuff from scenes and how to start to move items from scenes around. That was kind of the goal. I don't know. I have no clue in China where the advanced group ended up getting to. You guys probably have been hacking Sina's house all day, Lord knows, or something else. He turned off his switch, by the way. I discovered that this morning, accidentally.
Were you going to send him a wake-up message? Because
I literally sent Sina a wake-up message to his office Amazon Dot, and it rejected my request. So I just want to point that out. Anyway,
you got through last night, or you didn't? Finally.
Oh no, I hacked his machine last night for about an hour and a half. So it was pretty fun.
that would be why it was turned off.
Yeah,
this
that's
morning.
Blacklisted.
But in any case, I hope everybody's kind of getting the hang of stuff. Is there any comments or discussion? The only thing I want to mention is, I want to ask very briefly, is there anything else we should change before tomorrow to make this go more smoothly? It is an online version. None of us have done this before. Is there any recommendations for changes before we start again tomorrow?
Dr. Stefik?
Yes, ma'am.
May I make an observation?
You may.
I am not sure of this, but I think given my experience and also given the experience of some of the other members of the group, that Quorum may not detect when NVDA is running, and we often have to restart NVDA after we start Quorum Studio in order to see things on the map, etc. So I'm just letting you know and giving you a heads up that appears to be happening.
We have noticed that as well, and we were working on that yesterday because it's always when you bring in 10 screen reader users into a meeting, you're going to discover certain things. I can confirm that you are correct, and we have a hypothesis as to why that is the case. But we've set up two things to try to figure it out. One is we contacted our friend at Microsoft to try to give us a hand in figuring this out. And Microsoft has agreed to set up a hackathon with us to try to solve some of these remaining issues. And number two, we also have a hypothesis about why it's happening, but we haven't narrowed down exactly what it is, but we will work on it. So you are right. That's not a guess.
I'm just telling you because, the first thing you might tell people is restart frickin' NVDA if they're having problems with their maps or their code.
That's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing in the learner group as well. So it just happened to Leslie just a few minutes ago too. So
well, I will say this: if you start Quorum Studio and it says, because I actually have progress bar percentages turned off, and that the Quorum Studio, library for accessibility overwrites that, and it will give progress updates when Quorum is loading, and if it does that, and you don't have to restart NVDA. Usually, will read when that's on, when it gives you progress.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, William, I wonder if we should check the progress UIA property, see if it's been loaded into the NVDA yet.
Possible.
That would totally make sense if that was the case, because some of those progress bars do that.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, we should check that. We'll check that later this afternoon. That's amazing. Thank you, Josh. I would not have guessed that would have been the case. That'll be easy for us to check. Interesting. See, this is the other advantage of having a bunch of people in the room. They all try different settings. They're like, no, I tried this. I tried this. And then maybe that gives it. That's brilliant. Thank you, Josh.
Well, it also says, you know, like, you know, something like watching stand-up robots or something like, you know, it like little funny quips like that.
Yeah, it does. There's trolling internet trolls. Sometimes you'll get ironing Baby Yoda if you're lucky. He has wrinkles, you know. It's not mean. Anyway,